Right, I have finally got the Hydra Ethernet adapter working on the Atari. This is a shared project on PCB where you can go and get the PCBs and build it yourself. I was convinced for the longest time that maybe these RTL 8019AS chips that I was buying on eBay were fake, but they're not. They're actually working perfectly. What is not mentioned in any of the discussions about building this thing and actually getting it working is that the socket you use is ridiculously specific. You can't just go ahead and buy any old RJ45 jack with integral magnetics, because you're going to learn the hard way. It's just not going to frickin' work. It's specifically designed to use an obsolete version 10 megabit only port with integral magnetics. And I'll show you something interesting. I couldn't find one of those anywhere, by the way. So I went ahead and bought a 10100 version. You'd think that would just plug in and work, but you'd be very, very wrong. There's about 8 million different versions of these sockets, even from the same manufacturer, Worth Electronics. The pinouts are actually different on the PCB side. So you really have to be careful with which socket you're getting. You need to study data sheets and you need to understand how this stuff works. Otherwise you're going to be wasting a lot of time like I did. And just to make things interesting, the standards have changed over the years for the direction that the pins are counted from. You notice this newer 10100 socket, it actually starts counting from right to left. The original spec is left to right. So that just makes things a little bit more confusing. Once you work out, well, this is the correct socket for the Hydra, which I don't actually have. Once you work out the primary and center taps of the transformers for TX and RX, you can go ahead and make a little conversion chart here. I just did it by hand. And I've also converted the pin numbers to match the old style schematic, just to stop some bloody confusion. Pin 1 and 2 not connected on the Hydra. That's going to the center tap on the secondary side of the transformers, not used. There's nothing to connect it to. They're the two wires that you'll see shortly not going anywhere. And yeah, just figure out which one needs to go where and make a little adapter harness. This is what you need to do if you don't get specifically the right socket. And yes, it's ugly as hell, but it works. So this is another one that I've created. I've made several because I was pulling my hair out wondering what in God's name is going on. Why will this not communicate? Interesting thing is, if you connect this, or plug this, I should say solder this socket straight onto this board, hoping for the best, yes, you get a link. You get a link, but absolutely no data is transferred because the pinout is just ever so slightly incorrect. And I've had my scope here, I've been messing around with this, risking my extremely valuable TT. Yeah, but it's working now, and I'll show you how damn good it is when it actually does work. So this is literally all I want to do with this network adapter, is run the UIP tool, just for easy file transfer, because floppy drives suck. I've moved on from that crap. I'm not interested in using a floppy emulator. I've got a big hard drive in there. I just want to transfer games and whatnot easily using modern technology. And I don't want to use the damn serial port either because that's too slow. So yeah, with the port soldered in there that wasn't working, I could get to this point. I could program the MAC address using setMac, no problem. This, by the way, is a cloned EEPROM from a genuine RTL ISA card because I wanted to rule that out as well. So that's actually a legitimate Mac. It's not just one that was automatically generated in that program. It would always just get to DHCP IP and then just sit there flashing. There'd be no chance of ever getting an IP address. And I scoped it out. There was no TX coming out of that port whatsoever. It was just, yeah, wrong. So now I've got an IP address. It's actually frickin' working. And I'll show you on the computer, running Windows 11, it's transferring files to and from my 30-year-old TT. So you just type in the IP address given in the address bar of your browser and it brings you up to this page where you can very easily see all of the drives on your Atari computer. Just for the purposes of demonstration, I can go ahead and select a file to send to its hard drive. I've got these photos of this old vehicle I had when I was a teenager. I'll just send 150 kilobytes. You'll see it's practically instantaneous. And there you go. And just for example, we want to retrieve a file that's on this hard drive. We can go ahead and double click it, downloads it, open it, and there it is. As easy as that. So that is bloody awesome as far as transferring to and from files from your Atari computer. I can't imagine anything any easier than that. No need to fumble around with SD cards or floppy disks or serial cables. Don't need the Windows 98 laptop anymore. I can do this from Windows 11. And that's it. I've made a dog's breakfast of the solder pads on that Ethernet jack because I've played around with it so much. Ideally, I need to make another one of these. And yes, I even resoldered the pins on the chip there that go to twisted pair outputs. I made a bit of a mess there as well. I just soldered generally in that area. I haven't cleaned it up. I just wanted to rule everything out. That was obviously not an issue. There was no problem soldering any of this. This is actually quite easy. I do struggle with the SMD resistors and capacitors because I cannot find my tweezers. I've lost those somewhere. Believe it or not, the quad flat pack RTL chip, ridiculously easy to solder as long as you use flux and a fine soldering iron. Not even using a fine soldering iron, it's actually easy as hell. Easier than these caps and resistors. So all three of these ICs, piece of cake. Practice makes perfect. I think I'll go ahead and find the correct Ethernet jack so I don't have to have this dog's breakfast going on, and I'll build another one. I've got plenty of spare parts, so yeah, I want one that actually looks nice. But then again, the net USB schematics and Gerbers, they're all public, so I might actually build that next, since I've had success here.